What is going on, you guys? So, Iran and Israel, what the hell is going on over there? And who's in the right? By the end of this video, I think you're gonna know who is actually in the right or wrong. So, first off, let me just give a brief summary of what the heck happened the past 3 days. I'm also gonna show a video of Myron Gaines and Nick Fuentes, just explaining some of the stuff that they could explain it way better than I can. So I'm gonna play some clips from them. But so far, what's been going on is the past 3 days. June 12th, I just got Grok to kind of write me a brief summary. But June 12th, which was when the war started, Israel launches Operation Rising Lion, striking Iran's nuclear sites. I don't know what I have no idea how to even pronounce some of this stuff. They attacked nuclear sites, missile facilities, military bases in Tehran, which is their capital. Isfahan. I'm not Carmen Shah. From now on, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce these names or these names of these cities. And they killed. That's when they killed a bunch of senior. Like they just did one strike, killed a bunch of top officials. It's crazy. And there's a news story of what happened that day. Israel hits Iran's nuclear sites and killed its top military commanders. So that happened on day one. Day two, which is June 13th, which is yesterday, from the recording of this video, Iran retaliates with Operation Severe Punishment, firing ballistic missiles and drones at Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Israeli bases. Israel's Iron Dome intercepts most, but so like only a couple missiles get through, a couple Israelis die. But supposedly, what they've been saying about this one is that the United States, actually helped helped them with their Iron Dome. Basically, they helped shoot out some of the missiles. So we're definitely involved. So there's that. June 13th, yesterday, the United States is involved. June 14th, which is today, conflict continues with Iran launching more missiles towards Israel, intensifying strikes. Or no, Israel's intensifying strikes, my bad. Iran reports 78 total deaths, including 29 children. Israel vows to set back Iran's nuclear program. Nuclear talks collapse. As you guys know, Trump was supposed to talk with Iran's leaders on Sunday. I doubt that's going to happen now. And now oil prices are also surging by 7%, according to Grok. And I looked it up, and they really are surging, according to the CNN. Well, I mean, CNN, they're kind of iffy anyways, but they are saying that 7% is what the oil prices are going up. So someone's making a lot of money already. But all right, so now we got to that's the latest news. Now we got to talk about Israel and Palestine. Like a little I'm just going to give you guys a little quickie on a history pause. But I'll let Nick Fuentes speak on this because I'm not an expert, and I think this guy does a good job at explaining it. So, let me find my spot really quick. And also, I gotta mute my mic, otherwise you guys are gonna get echo. So give me a little.
Go and create a new nation, and they had lots of ideas. Some said South America, some said Central Africa, some said, they had a lot of different ideas about where exactly this would be. But ultimately, they decided on the eternal home of the Jewish people, which is Palestine, which is Israel. There's one problem, though, which is that Palestine at the time was controlled by the Ottomans, was controlled by the Ottoman Turkish Caliphate, which is Muslim and hostile to Jews. Nevertheless, they set out to settle this Muslim-occupied land of Palestine, 95% Palestinian, okay? Palestinian Arab Muslim, 5% Christian. And so starting in the early 20th century, the Jews begin to colonize what is modern-day Israel. And they're moving there. And over the course of some very shrewd geopolitical maneuvering, at the end of World War I, the Ottoman Caliphate is partitioned. A deal is brokered. So we could get into all of that. I don't think it's necessary for the purpose of this. But basically, the Ottoman Empire, what was the word that I used? The Ottoman Empire is basically dismembered, and they slice it all up, and they give it to different people. And the Sykes-Picot Agreement after World War I, so Ottomans lose World War I, French and British are the victors. So the French and the British partition the Middle East between each other. with the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and some of the Middle East is given to the French, and some of the Middle East is given to the British. The mandate of Palestine is the British Palestine that they inherit from World War I. After World War II, in 1948, the Jewish people declare independence. There's this World War II memo which says that the Jewish people have a right to a homeland in Israel, and the Jewish people fight this war of independence. They basically push all the Palestinian Arab Muslims out. At that point, the Jewish population has grown to something like a majority, like half or like a majority. They expel all the Palestinians into neighboring Jordan and Lebanon, to the east across the Jordan River, and to the north into Lebanon, and they establish their own country. And this is really where it starts. This is really where it starts. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but this is the problem. You had Muslim Arabs that used to live there. Jewish people settled it. And in 1948, they created a state and they pushed all these Palestinians out. And they call this the Day of Catastrophe. They push all the Palestinians into Lebanon and Jordan. They displace them violently and aggressively establish their own territory. And ever since 1948, this has been the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is how do we reconcile a Jewish homeland in the middle of a Muslim region? How do we reconcile and this is one component of the problem, how do we reconcile a newly created Jewish state in the middle of a former Muslim empire? You know, to their north, to their south, and to the east is Muslim. To their south is Egypt and Saudi Arabia. To the east is Jordan and Iraq. To the north is Lebanon and Syria. And it's Muslim countries all the way around. You don't get a country that is not Muslim until you get to like Armenia in the north, the Congo, and to the Jewish state in the middle of sort of the ruins of a former Muslim empire, centuries old, millennia, which is to say, Palestinians, to create the Jewish state, people had to be displaced rapidly, right, in a short period of time, and lots of them. Jews settle Palestine in half of a century, and then they expel the remaining Arab Palestinians, for the most part, aggressively in 1948 to establish this country. So it's not just that there's a Jewish state in the Middle East, it's that there is a Jewish state that displaced Arab Muslim Palestinians, which have been living there for thousands of years, and who, within a lifetime, 1948 in the grand scheme of things is recent. How do you reconcile this with the fact that there are people that were displaced within their lifetimes by this state, now living in another country? And how do you reconcile the fact that there are people living under Jewish rule, living under the Jewish-Israeli rule, that are being treated as second-class citizens in a place that their forefathers, you know, that was their forefathers' country? This is the problem. The modern-day problem is maybe a little bit deeper than that, which is that what happened in 1948 has been continuing perpetually since then. That the Jewish settlers who started coming in the turn of the last century have ever since been continually expanding and settling Muslim Palestinian areas. Civilian Jewish Israeli settlers are continuing to this day to move into historically Muslim Arab Palestinian neighborhoods and parts of the country, and colonizing the entire mandate of Palestine, the entire region of Israel, including the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And so the Palestinians continue to be pushed back, continue to be pushed out. This is really the problem.
All right, so you just heard from Nick Fuentes, what the heck's going on over there. Basically, the Palestinians that were there were being pushed out. Like, people are gonna say that the Jews had that right like before because they owned the land like I don't know, like in the first century, and then they got pushed out by the Romans. And then some would argue that land is rightfully Israel's, but then now people are saying that that it's also the Palestinians' land because the Palestinians have been there sooner, they were there sooner, and they were there, and they're currently being pushed out by Israel. So there's a bit of a debate going on, but basically Israel hasn't been in that land for like thousands of years, basically. Like, I don't know exact amount, but they haven't been there in a long time. But anyways, next thing I want to talk about is AIPAC, because AIPAC is really important. This is, I told you guys earlier, the United States has been involved in some of the interceptions of the missile strikes that Iran has been shooting over to Israel, and that gets you wondering, why is the United States even involved with Israel in the first place? So if you look up AIPAC, AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, is a bipartisan political action committee and lobbying group that works to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. It's known as America's pro-Israel lobby. AIPAC's activities include lobbying Congress, encouraging political and student activism, and promoting policies that support Israel's security and well-being. So AIPAC is a lobby. It's here, and it funds American politicians, and I could prove it to you guys with this little source right here that shows the funding for each politician that we have. So, I mean, first off in the list, it's actually, no, it's not Joe Biden. I thought it was Hillary Clinton. But Joe Biden's right here. $4.2 million. I don't know who Robert Menendez is, but he has $2.5 million of funding from AIPAC. Hillary Clinton, there she is, $2.3 million. So Joe Biden's number one, the number one beneficiary of the funding from AIPAC, which are the Israelis. So then we got Kamala Harris. I mean, we got pretty much everyone. The list just goes down and down. Right here somewhere, Marco Rubio, $1 million. Lindsey Graham, $1 million. So pretty much, look, and then the pages go on. You could go to page 2. And then we have other senators. I don't know most of these guys, but they're all senators. Look, Democrat. Right here I see mostly Democrats, but in the I was looking. Oh, there's a Republican right there. So it really is bipartisan. AIPAC, which is the Israel lobby, is funding members of Congress, and it was funding Joe Biden, which was our previous president, and Hillary Clinton, which was the runner-up for 2016. She was supposed to be president when Donald Trump actually swooped in. And I know Trump is actually getting money too. I don't know where he is on this list, but I'm sure you guys can look it up. Right now, I just wanted to make that point really quick. But so now we gotta cover what the hell happened with JFK, 9/11, and how that got us involved in the Middle East in the first place. So here's Myron Gaines. He explained this really good in this video. I love this video. Let's see. Let me just find a timestamp really quick. It's 4:24 because I don't want to just play some irrelevant shit. And then I'll mute my mic and we'll get started.
Okay? Now, I find it interesting that on November 22nd...
By the way, this one's going to be kind of long, guys, so take a seat, grab some popcorn.
In 1963, a guy named Abraham Zapruder was at the perfect place, at the perfect time, in the 60s when video cameras were a fairly rare thing to have, was there to record the assassination of a sitting U.S. president. And then released that video 10 plus years later, roughly 10 years later, to the tune of $1 to $2 million in today's dollars. I also find it interesting that Abraham Zapruder, the guy who captured the historic film, was Wanted and Boys. And he was a member of B'nai B'rith, a Wanted and Boys organization. Then you find out that the book depository was owned by Wanted and Boys as well. Then you find out the person that told the Dallas Police Department to walk Oswald outside and perp walk him was a guy named Sam Bloom.
By the way, guys, just to explain the cha-chings and them boys, in case you don't know Myron Gaines, that's how he refers to the Jewish people as. So, just an FYI.
Then you find out that the person that came and shot and killed Oswald, preventing his ability to speak, was a guy named Jack Ruby, real name Jacob Rubenstein. Then he tells his rabbi and his lawyer in confidence, I did it for the Jewish people. I think anyone with any type of critical thinking skills will understand, that's a little strange. Then you find out that the people that brought JFK down there on November 22nd, 1963, was the Texas Citizens Council, run by members of B'nai B'rith. A what organization? Interesting. So I'm not saying that Israel was the sole participant in the murder of John F. Kennedy. But what I am saying is there's definitely fingerprints there. It's not a conspiracy. It was multiple factions that had a shared interest of getting rid of a president that, quite frankly, was pesky to their agenda. And the problem is asking questions and connecting these dots is what gets you in trouble. They want you to think it was just the CIA and the mafia. They don't want you to talk about this angle. Let's keep cooking. The most famous movie that documents the John F. Kennedy assassination was a film by Oliver Stone called JFK, released in 1991. In the film, Jim Garrison, prosecutor out of New Orleans, goes on a relentless hunt to pursue the assassins of JFK. The movie brings up the CIA, and the movie also brings up the mafia. Mentions these two links. It goes after the single bullet theory, or the magic bullet theory, and basically shows that there was a conspiracy. Something that's very interesting in the film, though, is that the Israeli connection was never mentioned in the movie. At first, I thought maybe this is just a mishap. Maybe they didn't think it was interesting enough. But as I grew older and I realized that, certain things in history are censored if a certain nation's involved, I did a little bit of digging. And I found out that Oliver Stone's real last name is Silverstein. His father changed it to avoid persecution or being labeled as one of them boys. Fair. A lot of people do that. Benjamin Netanyahu's last name isn't Netanyahu. Fair enough. Then I find out who...
Actually, prior to this, I didn't know about the Netanyahu thing. I thought Netanyahu was his real name, but that's real weird that he would change it.
Funded the movie. A guy named Arnon Milchan. Who's Arnon Milchan? Well, Arnon Milchan, guys, is a Zionist billionaire that was running around all over Hollywood and was behind many famous movies. But he funded the JFK movie. Now, you would think maybe they didn't want to put the Zionist angle because it wasn't interesting. Who cares about nuclear weapons? Who cares about Farah? Boring, mundane stuff. Not as cool as the CIA and the mafia. Fair. But things get really interesting. You find out that Arnon Milchan was a spy for Israel. Yes, he was. He admitted it on a TV show, which I'll show you here in a second. Right? And not only was he a spy for Israel, he was a spy in a very certain program. He was a spy concerning Israel's unacknowledged nuclear program. Whoa, hold on. So let me get this straight. The most popular movie that documents the assassination of a former sitting U.S. president was funded by an Israeli spy that was a part of their unacknowledged nuclear program and had an incentive to ensure that no one knows that Israel has a nuclear program. Interesting. Then you find out that JFK knew about their nuclear program, pressured Ben-Gurion, the former prime minister of Israel, to have nuclear inspections in Dimona. Oh. Now the bells are ringing. The JFK movie was funded by an Israeli spy to prevent the American public from understanding the Zionist connections and what Kennedy was trying to do behind the scenes, which was de-arm our greatest ally after they stole uranium from us to do their nuclear program. So in other words, The most famous movie that documents the killing of John F. Kennedy was funded by an Israeli spy from their nuclear program that had an incentive to keep you guys in the fucking dark about the Zionist angle that wanted Kennedy gone for knowing about their nuclear program and demanded fucking inspections. This is what they don't want you to know. This is why Andrew Schultz is a retard and doesn't know. This is what's censored. This is what gets you banned. When you connect the dots like this, it's one thing to sit there and be a retard and say, the Jews did it! The Jews did it! No. It was a concerted effort by multiple entities that needed JFK gone. It just so happens that they conveniently leave out the Israeli angle. And when you find out who funded the movie that left out the Israeli angle, it all makes sense. Arnon Milchan had an incentive to make sure no one from the American public would understand or know that John F. Kennedy was aggressively fighting with the Israeli government to disarm them and take their nuclear weapons away. And Israel couldn't let that happen because they got embarrassed with the Suez Canal crisis in 1956, and they knew that if they didn't have the nuclear weapon, the Arab world would destroy them. That's the fucking truth. That's the truth bomb that no one wants to say. That's what
couldn't find my mic thing for a minute, but yeah, I mean that's crazy as hell. So JFK knew about the nuclear program. I'm pretty sure he knew that they stole the uranium from us, and he tried to stop them, and so they put a bullet in his head, and it has Israeli fingerprints all over the place. Like that does not sound like a coincidence at all to me. But next he's gonna talk about 9/11, so I'm gonna keep it rolling for like it's gonna be like another 10 minutes. But now he's gonna talk about 9/11 and what happened with that. So let's go on with that.
why people are scared to bring me on their show. That is why everyone does everything in their power to obfuscate from the fucking truth. And it gets better. We're not done cooking, chat. Let's keep going. So, we went over how Abraham Zapruder, a member of B'nai Birth and a hardcore Zionist, was at the perfect place at the perfect time to document a historic moment in American history. And he ended up getting that film and selling it for $1 million+. Let's fast forward to 2001, New Jersey, roughly 8 o'clock in the morning. A van drives up to an apartment complex, goes to the top floor, has a perfect vantage point of Manhattan. Several Israeli nationals go out the van and start setting up a camera. The fucking first plane hits. They're celebrating. They're cheering. They're going crazy. Flicking lighters, moonwalking and shit. Got some good dance moves. In case you guys didn't know, Israelis are really good dancers. A woman, a concerned citizen, sees them doing this shit. What the fuck? Calls the fucking cops. Cops calls the FBI. FBI, open up! They have...
Yo, I would be like, what the fuck? Also, dude, if I saw just some random Israelis just dancing and flicking lighters and shit, and right after the towers got knocked down, dude, I would be calling the cops too, man. I don't even blame her.
Apprehend these individuals. They bring them in for questioning. They find out 2 of these individuals had links to Israeli intelligence from FBI databases. They give them polygraph tests. They fail when asked if they were Israeli intelligence. They find out that they work for a moving company. Urban Moving System, something like that, I think. They get a search warrant. They raid the facility. They find an enormous amount of information and terabytes of data. Kind of weird for a fucking moving company, huh? They find that the owner, a guy named Dominic Suter, is the owner of the company. They do a little bit more digging. They find out that Israeli intelligence paid for this fucking moving company. They tell Dominic Suter, hey, we need you to come in for some questioning. Guess what happens? He fucking flees the country. Fucking gone. Goku. Where'd he go? Israel. These Israelis are put in jail for roughly 70 days. Okay? They're held in immigration custody. When asked if they had foreknowledge about the towers being hit by planes, they denied it, but they failed the polygraph test. They spent about 70 days in immigration custody, INS back then. This is prior to the Homeland Security Act. And they're deported back to Israel. Well, you're asking yourself, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why aren't they at Guantanamo Bay being waterboarded next to all the other Arabs that have, conducted terrorist attacks or have loose links to the events that transpired on 9/11? Well, you do a little bit of digging. And as always, you figure out what happened. The guy that was over the criminal division of the Department of Justice was a guy named Chertoff. Chertoff is dual citizen, Israeli. And he was also the co-author of the Patriot Act. I know, it gets crazier every time. So Chertoff oversaw these guys getting deported back to Israel. Back in 2001, the Immigration Naturalization Service, INS, was under the Department of Justice, the DOJ. This was before the creation of the Homeland Security Act. Very important for you guys to understand. So immigration fell under the Department of Justice. Chertoff was the head of the criminal division of the DOJ in the Bush administration. Then it gets better. You find out his mom was a significant contributor to Mossad operations in its early fucking inception. These Israelis that documented the entire event and were dancing and celebrating on the worst day in American history are allowed to go back to Israel. They didn't get sent to Guantanamo Bay. They didn't get tortured, none of that stuff, like anyone else that was linked to 9/11 would. And they admit on an Israeli talk show that they had foreknowledge. As a matter of fact, to add insult to injury, one of them later got married on 9/11/2003 to fucking rub salt in the fucking wounds. They thought it was funny. They thought it was funny.
Yeah, that's a blatant slap in the face to us. Like, they pretty much caused all this shit, and then they get married or he gets married to his wife on 9/11 also. That's just a slap in the they humiliated the United States, and we didn't even know it.
Oh, chat, you want me to keep going? Guys, you want me to keep going, or you guys want to hear what Andrew Schultz and David Sachs are going to say about it's all? You guys in the YouTube chat saying, chill, Myron, this is too. It gets better. Here's a story that not many people know. Tennessee. A gang of Israelis is arrested by the FBI for having a bunch of fake documents, driver's licenses, etc. They had conspired with this woman, a black woman, to procure a bunch of DMV identification. Well, you're probably asking, Myron, why are you talking to me about a document benefit fraud case out of fucking Tennessee? Who cares? They're Israelis, who cares? You're right. Under normal pretenses, this would not matter. But it gets interesting because a couple of these Israelis that were caught in this ring were at the World Trade Center months before the attack. The woman that gave these guys these fake documents under fake aliases of fake names had been paid by these individuals to get the documents. She mysteriously ended up dead in a car crash and fiery end. These Israelis that were at the World Trade Center, they didn't have a permit to be there. The Port Authority ran the World Trade Center. These guys had entry into the World Trade Center, but didn't have permits to work on it. So let me get this straight. We have Israelis taking pictures and dancing when the towers are hit. Then we have another group of Israelis that have fake documents that entered the World Trade Center months before the planes hit and the towers came down in what looks like a controlled demolition, according to many different architects and physicists.
Now, I'm not an architect, but I've seen the way those buildings fall. No building is just gonna pancake down like straight down like that. Like that was, I don't know, man. Like I heard the explanations and it makes total sense. Like if the building were to actually fall down, it would have like crumbled in a certain way and it would knock down a bunch of other stuff like all around it. These things came straight down. So I don't know. I encourage you guys to look at the videos and judge for yourself. But I kind of think there was probably bombs in the building.
It's irrefutable. Everyone considers it a controlled demolition. Interesting. Oh, but it gets better, chat. The buildings were purchased by a guy named Larry Silverstein. He purchased them roughly 1 to 2 months prior to the towers being hit. Not only did he purchase them, which didn't make sense because the buildings had a huge asbestos problem and they were not making money, which in commercial real estate, by the way, just so you guys know, the building being profitable dictates if you do the deal or not. The buildings were not profitable. There was no way that he could have gotten a loan to buy those fucking buildings in a commercial deal because they weren't generating enough rent due to the asbestos problem. But it doesn't matter. He purchased the buildings anyway. And he got an interesting terrorism insurance policy. Unorthodox, never seen before. He would go to the towers every single morning to have breakfast at around 8 a.m. On September 11th, for some odd reason, he had a dermatology appointment. His wife told him, hey, bro, your skin sucks. You're getting old. You got to go to the dermatologist. Force him to go. Convenient timing. That's the day that the towers were hit.
So yeah, guys, I mean, you just heard from Myron. So JFK has Israeli fingerprints all over it. 9/11 also has Israeli fingerprints all over it. The Jewish state itself was placed there right after World War II by the winning powers, which was the UK, and I'm not sure if the US was involved in that, but I wouldn't doubt if they were. But they were pretty much all moved there, and they kicked all the Palestinians out, and now they established their own state there. And then we get to today, where Israel has, they defeated Hezbollah up there in Lebanon not too long ago, a couple months ago. Trump mercilessly bombed Yemen like maybe a month ago. And now, so with those two guys destroyed, and then with the Iraq invasion in, I don't know, 2002, I think it was, or, I mean, it was kind of right after 9/11. So we have all those details going on. And now we have Israel moving in towards Iran, with the U.S. involved and backing them up and destroying and intercepting missiles. So what's the conclusion? Well, I mean, I think off of this video, you guys can conclude for yourselves, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my guys' opinion. I think Iran is the defending nation and Israel has definitely been the aggressors here. So, yeah, that's my take. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you guys think. Am I right or am I wrong? According to all this, looks like I'm right, and we should really start asking some questions about Israel and why they even exist in the first place. And this is not to say that the Jewish people shouldn't exist. No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, why do the Jewish people get their own state, but other people like Christians don't really have their own state? I mean, we had the United States, but now it's been overrun by wokeness, and we don't really have our own state. And neither do a lot of religions, but for some reason the Jewish people, they need their own state and they can't have anybody else in there. What I would go for at this point would be not even a two-state solution. I would just say one-state solution. Have Jewish people and Palestinians living together. I know they say that, oh, we can't live together because we want to kill each other. Well, that's what laws are for, right? We learn to live together, just like in America. We're the most diverse country in the world. They could learn to be diverse too. We could probably help them peacefully with that, instead of trying to create an Israeli hegemony in the Middle East. I mean, this is just crazy what's going on. But yeah, anyways, guys, let me know what you think, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.